be sure to hop on over to the Spiritual Broadcast Network. It's the go-to place for all things spiritual. You'll discover internet television shows that you won't find anywhere else. You can also choose from hundreds of hours of spiritual documentaries and movies. You'll enjoy on-demand and live internet television programming 24/7. Best of all, we add new dramas, comedies, talk, and reality shows and more on a daily basis. So why spend countless hours searching the web when you can quickly find just what you want on the Spiritual Broadcast Network?
Thank you for tuning in to Shift Happens TV. Join us each Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time as we take you on a metaphysical journey. Be enlightened and entertained as we take you through life, love, and beyond in an inspiring and humorous way. Live your life with no regrets and die laughing.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Shift Happens. Oh, can we ever have a show without some shift happening? Well, we're here to enlighten and obviously entertain, as well as shift consciousness one show at a time. We're your hosts, Connie and Martin Jordan. Me, Connie, I'm an author and metaphysical comedian, and now I'm going to add reader.
Awesome.
Psychic reader to my... I've done it before, just in case anybody else, but I've gotten the nudge. Andrew's been nudging me. I've been ignoring him, but now he's speaking through other people. So yes, I will be doing readings again. And if you sign up on our newsletter at pureheartspace.com, you'll get our newsletter and get all the goodies there about the readings and what I'm offering there. And then my husband, Martin, who is a psychic medium and hypnotherapist, past life regressionist, paranormal overachiever, singer, songwriter. Right?
Absolutely.
Yes. So we will be offering readings together for a while, and then
Yes.
I'll also be doing email readings. And we will be in Fort Lauderdale this weekend, the 21st and 22nd, Friday and Saturday. And we'll be doing readings, be offering readings then during the day. We have some time open, so you can always give us a call at 941-926-7522. Now we have another great guest today. We just have the best guest ever. So Martin, why don't you introduce our guest for today?
Today's guest is the fabulous, gorgeous, vivacious Lisa McCourt from her experience, what I call it, the Lisa McCourt experience, Juicy Joy. And she's always been passionate about, if you've ever met Lisa, she's just passionate about stuff. You know, just stuff.
Everything.
Everything. And she just loves to help people sort of find that the juicy joy within themselves, and the ability to sort of grow, and the ability to sort of be better than they are, and better than they thought they could be. And she has a book.
Yeah, there we go.
Does that work?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm seeing it.
We're
Juicy
good
Joy. That's her latest
Juicy
book.
Joy, yes. And she has been featured on Lifetime TV, Fox News, CNN, PBS, etc., etc., etc.
Etc. She's won 7 publishing awards and sold over 5.5 million copies.
Mm-hmm.
Did I read that right?
Yes.
Of Juicy Joy. Oh, 5.5 million copies of books. Okay, I saw the period. Okay.
Did you?
Yes.
Oh, you're
And
so sharp.
Punctuation is
You're like
everything.
a freaking tack. You really are. Sharp.
That's it. Period. Juicy Joy, 7 Simple Steps to Your Glorious Gutsy Self. Hay House is based on her transformative trainings in the authenticity and self-love. And Lisa also is on CBS Radio.
CBS Radio, yeah.
Yay.
CBS
yes,
Radio.
we've been on her radio show.
As they say in French, la radio.
Really? And her website is lisamccourt.com.
Lisa, are you with us? Please join us.
I am. I'm just laughing this up. What a great intro.
Before Connie reaches across and chokes me, chokes all the juicy joy out of me, we thought it's time to invite on. Oh yes, we have a guest. It's not all about me.
It's always all about you, Mark.
Absolutely. So how have you been?
I am fabulous. I was excited to get to come play with y'all today.
Good.
Yeah, we were just really excited that we were able to get you in because I know that you're very busy.
I
Now,
am very busy, but always time for you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. And I'm excited that we'll see you this weekend as well.
Yes.
Very
that
cool.
will be fun with our friend Dr. Stephen Farmer, who
Yes.
I know is on the show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're going to
Anything
see.
in the South Florida area, you
Yep.
can check out his website, earthmagic.net, for events this weekend. May as well plug Stephen while we're here.
Right?
He would do the same thing for us.
That's right.
Now, I know that you've sold 5.5 million books prior in the children's, but you've gone a whole other direction now in your life, which I think a lot of us has done when we get in. You're like 40-ish, right?
Thereabouts.
Yeah.
I just turned 48.
Yeah, so, I know for even Martin and I, we look for different directions to go. So what does it mean to have juicy joy? Where did that come from? How did you come up with that concept and develop that?
Well, you mentioned the 5.5 million books. Most of those were children's books. I had written 2 parenting books for adults previously that were included in that grouping. But that's what I started out my career doing. I worked in children's book publishing for a while, and then I wrote my first children's book was called I Love You, Stinky Face, and I was so fortunate, so blessed that it was extremely popular and did very, very well for the company, which just paved the way for all of the sequels and all of the other books that I was blessed to be able to write. And that's what contributes to the big sales figure. But I used to travel all over the country talking about those books, mostly at elementary schools, but sometimes at high schools and middle schools, because my presentation was about creativity. I didn't go just to talk about the kids' books. I really talked about how to develop your own creativity, how to get in touch with that inner voice, which is where creativity comes from. And the word creativity is welcome in the public schools of this country. They think that's a great thing. They think I'm going to go in there and talk about making artwork and writing and poetry. And instead, because I've always had this very personal development bent, metaphysical, spiritual bent to me, I got more and more relaxed with this topic of creativity, and it became more and more about creating yourself the way you want to be, creating situations and outcomes and manifestation. And I was always afraid, pushing the envelope a little too far, they were going to stop inviting me, but it just sort of took off, and that became the reason that I had so many invitations. And from there, it branched out into spiritual conferences and doing workshops around these principles that I was still calling creativity until I got clear that it was really about finding joy in life. And I started enjoying the adult workshops, because even the elementary schools would have a workshop later in the day or the evening for the parents and the teachers. I started really enjoying that more than anything else, and decided I needed to try to make that leap over to full-on personal development, grown up. So now I'm almost inching backwards. I'm developing some young adult and teen programs, but it's just, it happened over a series of synchronicity, one step, one foot over the next, and got me over there.
Yeah, we had an experience yesterday, and it was really kind of appropriate for the show today. And I know this is because I have your book and have been reading your book, and I love the exercises. But yesterday when we were out for lunch, there was this little boy, just a little toddler.
No, it was funny. And
I can't tell you, it really made my heart sing, because the absolute joy in this little boy, as he was running from his mother, he could have only been, I don't even think he was 3. He was really a little guy. But the giggle, the belly laugh, and his arms were up in the air, and he was running down the aisle, and his mother's trying to get him. And then, it wasn't busy, so he wasn't in anybody's way. But the sheer joy and the giggling, it was like the best laugh.
Yeah, because he shot past me like a bullet, you know.
And giggling, just that deep belly giggle that he was just so happy and so full of joy.
But when he got back to the table, they were all laughing, so it was a kind of a
glad
joy
to see
family.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Family. I know you all get so much joy from your little person.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
Sweetheart. Oh, my God.
Well, she's 18 months old, so there's times I'm looking at the clock going, okay, when do her parents get off work? Graham is tired.
Well, her philosophy is sleep is for suckers.
Because you'll usually grab something that's breakable, run with it, and then throw it on the ground and keep running.
But with joy.
With joy.
So much joy. So it's hard to get mad at her. So you have to, it's almost like you're approaching a wild animal, because, she's got something breakable, and you go, oh, that's so pretty, let me have it. And you're just, cautiously approaching her, trying not to spook her. So, that's, and you're right. I think the title of your book it's about people getting back to finding that juicy joy within themselves. And I like the fact, too, that you put a lot of emphasis on the authenticity. So, you know, why is it that, what is your reasoning for that?
Well, authenticity, if you tell people, do you want to come in my workshop, you're going to learn how to be more authentic or how to love yourself. That's the other prong. It's like authenticity and self-love are the two cornerstones of the whole Juicy Joy training.
Yeah.
But
and then,
you tell people that, they're like, oh,
well, or you get the creepy guys. Really? You're going to teach me how to love myself? Awesome.
Right. I think that they've become such vanilla words. Nobody hears them anymore. They've been overused in the whole personal development industry. Everybody thinks, yeah, I'm authentic enough. I'm authentic. Sure, I love myself. I'm great. No, we're talking about a whole new level of radical authenticity and profound radical self-love. And that's what allows you to wake up every day feeling genuine joy for your life and yourself and your loved ones. It's a matter of peeling away all those layers that you accumulate, we all accumulate throughout our lives. All those things anybody's ever told us that causes us to doubt ourselves or feel insecure. We didn't come into the world this way. You know, our authentic self is totally self-loving, but we've got all these layers of crap, and it takes some real specific work to get rid of them one by one, to peel those layers back and see who's under there. Because most of us are walking around like zombies, and we don't even know it. We don't even know how much you're missing and how much richness and juice and vitality there is available to you, because we've got all this stuff in between, all this padding that separates us from our experience of life.
Well, you know, you used the perfect word, because I had put this on my Facebook status, you know, for a couple of different reasons, but the zombie apocalypse is happening now between the medication of our children and, like you said, the people that are carrying around these layers and just going through this zombie-like existence, not really experiencing life to the fullest.
Yeah.
I did a blog post about that. Juicy Joy fixes the zombie apocalypse. Yeah, saves us from the zombie apocalypse.
And you know what?
Cash in on it. It's out there. That's the buzzwords of now.
And I think,
and I really feel like those things, when those icons show up in popular culture to the degree that they have, it is a reflection of what people are feeling.
Oh, yeah.
For a while, it was vampires, right? And I had this theory that was when people just first started realizing that they're thirsting for life, they're thirsting for something that they're not getting, that they're told they're not allowed to have, and they're bad if they want this kind of joy and this freedom, so that there's this whole vampire mentality. And I think the sign that it's moved from vampires to zombies is a really bad sign. I think it means they've just collectively given up. It's like, okay, I'm not going to get the joy I'm looking for. I'm not going to have that richness and fullness in my life, so I'm just going to walk around like a freaking zombie. It's really where our culture's headed.
I'll stick with the V.
well, you know, it was funny when we were in the hospital with Andrew, and for those that may not know, our son was diagnosed with leukemia. It was 5 years ago in July, and he made his journey home. 4 months later, he passed over in October, and there was a point in the hospital where he had lost a lot of blood from an intestinal bleed, and they were trying not to give him blood products because they try not to do that as often, you know, as least as possible. And he nearly fainted, and his lips were gray. And so when they said, okay, we have to give him blood, he was so funny because he says, wow, I totally get vampires now. I feel so good after getting some blood. So
sounds like the thing he would say compared to all those things that those Andrewisms that you tell us about. Amazing positive attitudes to that experience.
But I think, you know,
well, yeah, he's given us something to strive to, you know, and he set the bar pretty high.
Yeah, and you know,
and
I'm
enjoying it.
And he found the juicy joy even in the hospital while going through leukemia. So, you know, we still have quite the thing to live up to. And I love the fact that you've put together a program. Now, I know a little bit about this, and I love the fact that you're very honest in the book about this, but how has the Juicy Joy process worked for you in your own life?
Oh, my goodness. It saved my life. I mean, I was just like everybody else. I had a list of things that I wanted, that I knew, you know, these things are what's going to make me happy. And I had this metaphysical interest from a very early age. In college, I was able to create this big credited independent study program because I had this coolest psych head of my university, a true university ever. And so I knew a lot about the ancient Vedic traditions and the Buddhist traditions, and a lot about religions and how they talked about manifestation principles. And then I discovered the Hicks and Wayne Dyer and just, you know, the whole spectrum. I was a junkie for this stuff.
I think we all were.
All right. So I got really great at manifestation. I know how to manifest. And I got my young adult life just the way I wanted it. I had the sweet, supportive husband, the two beautiful, perfect, healthy, smart kids, this beautiful home in my favorite part of the country. I manifested this lucrative, kick-ass career as an author of children's books and parenting books. They were selling millions of copies. I had royalties coming in, all the things on my list. I did not have joy. Joy did not come naturally to me. I realized that in putting all the emphasis on this manifestation part of what I was learning, I was just applying principle after principle to this part of me that wasn't the real me. It was the persona that I had developed as a young person to represent me, and it had nothing to do with who I was at my core. I wasn't living as my core self. I had no idea who I was because I was the chameleon. I had learned at a very young age that to get love, you need to be what people want you to be. So no matter who was in front of me, whether it was somebody important or not in my life, it could have been a boss or a lover or a friend or the pizza boy delivering my pizza, whoever's in front of me, I learned how to intuit exactly what that person wanted me to be and become that in my interactions with them. And when you do that routinely in all areas of your life, even when someone does want to give you love or show you appreciation or attention, it can't land. It has nowhere to go because deep down you know that that attention or that admiration is completely contingent upon this persona that you've created for that person. And it took me a long time to realize this, even though I was doing all these personal development trainings and meditating and seeing all these gurus, and I thought I was making all this progress. That just hit me like a huge brick in the head when I realized, oh, I don't have joy because none of this is about who I really am.
Right.
So I learned, I kept doing personal development practices, but I learned how to skew each one toward my new goal of just figuring out who's underneath there and getting rid of all those layers. And it just became a whole new world. I shed a lot of that perfect life that I had worked so hard to create. I shed the husband and a lot of that career that I had worked hard to create, had to shed some friendships. But I was able to step into who I really am. And that's what I have put together. The Juicy Joy program is, there is manifestation to it. It's a two-pronged approach to joy because everybody wants to know the manifestation tricks, and I really do have some kick-ass manifestation tricks. So that's a part of it. But the bigger part is teaching them how to receive, how to feel joy from the things in their lives. And that means stripping them down to that authentic core.
And you know, what's interesting, Lisa, what people don't realize, like what happened with Martin and I, you know, with Andrew passing, you know, we were stripped down. We were back down at ground zero. We had to really see where we fit in our own lives again without our son, who was such a major part of our life. And, you know, it sounded like what you had to do. I mean, people are afraid to do the work sometimes. But in order to really get to the joy and to your authentic and self and who you really are, it's part of the process, you know, and I keep telling people the rewards are so tremendous. You know, it really is. And before we go on, before we go any questions, in case anybody's out there, the chat room is open today. So if anybody has any questions for Lisa or for us, you can go into the chat room. I just wanted to let people know that could be watching out there. Just in case, just wanted to put that out there. Now, what can our viewers do to start finding their own juicy joy?
I think one of the first steps, I mean, you can come into Juicy Joy Training. You can go to my website, lisamccourt.com, to find out about Juicy Joy Training. But one of the very first things I coach people to do is just to start becoming aware of the spectrum of their feelings, because we're so habituated to suppress certain feelings, deny certain feelings. We've been taught since we were babies that there's the happiness and the fun and the joy and the peace, and these are the emotions that we want, that we're seeking out. And then there's the sadness and the anger and the disappointment and maybe some shame. And these are feelings that we do not want to feel. These are bad feelings.
Yeah.
Sorry if it's darker. The sun's coming in, the cloud passing over the sun here. So it's a huge, huge process of learning to embrace and welcome all of those emotions. So one thing that is kind of an easy first step is to just set the intention when you wake up in the morning. Today, I am going to welcome every emotion, everything that comes up for me. And then throughout the day, just check in. I like to say once an hour is a great goal to have, but people get busy and you don't often remember. So if you need a little reminder, you could say every time I look at a clock, because you tend to look at the clock throughout the day. Every time I look at the clock and see what time it is, let that serve as my trigger to stop for a moment, check in. What am I feeling right now? And sometimes that's a big surprise because we're used to not paying attention to our feelings.
Yeah.
And when you're having a happy feeling, a good feeling, you want to celebrate that and really be happy that you are and notice it and pull it up and amplify it, because celebrating it is what will get you more of that great happy feeling. And if you're feeling a feeling that you deem negative, to also celebrate it and to notice that the default is to try to push it away or not look at it or not want to feel it, but really welcome it in. Ask, what message does this feeling have for me? There are all kinds of steps in Juicy Joy training about what to do with these feelings, but just to really see if it has some sort of message for you. And then once you've gotten the message, put all of your attention on, given that this is what I'm feeling in this moment, what would I like to be feeling? And just knowing what you would like to be feeling, putting your attention on that, imagining what it would feel like to feel that, is what will draw you to the next joyful place. So that's just kind of a very encapsulated mini little practice that people could start to do to just kind of open up that spectrum.
Well, it works, because that's something I trained myself to do about when I started my hypnosis training a while ago, checking in with myself. And I do it, I'm not conscious of doing it anymore until I do it. So if somebody says to me, how often do you check in with yourself? At a rough guess, I would say 20 times a day, maybe more.
You know, now thinking about it, it's interesting because somebody brought this up, Karen Anderson did when she was on our show. My son, throughout the day, he would always ask, how's it going? How's your day going?
Yep.
He was always, so it was almost like he was getting into that practice of getting us into that practice of checking in to see.
I'm checking in right now.
Of course you are. And, you know, and you're right, Lisa, as far as even, like, you know, we knew when we went through this with Andrew that I couldn't hide from the grief. I knew I had to feel it, and that's why I didn't medicate myself through it. You know, because I'm going to have to feel it at some point. And to push it down or to pretend it doesn't exist, you know, and there is like we were discussing with Morgan last week, there's you know, there's that balance that you don't get lost in it. And journaling is another great way that I found. But, you know, and again, then it's about, okay, I don't want to feel this way anymore, and finding whatever it is, whether it's a song
but
or...
pick something. If you don't like the way you're feeling, pick something. You know, if you don't know what you want to feel, pick something positive, or talk to somebody who's positive and say, what are you feeling? Let me choose that one. Because some people just don't, they're not able to sort of connect to what positive means for them, you know? And it's like, okay, well, anything other than what you're feeling right now is good. You know?
And we've always been taught not to do that. We've been taught that if there is a problem, you need to focus on the problem until you're able to solve it. And if it's really hard to solve, that just means extra focusing and focusing and focusing.
Yeah.
And it's really counterproductive to moving into joy.
Yeah, but it's about getting into also that if you're feeling fear, focusing on not being afraid isn't going to work.
Right.
You've got to pick something that isn't fear, like courage, which is the opposite. Focusing on something that's positive, focusing on something that you want to do, focusing on something that you've done that has made you feel good, and then go with that, you know. But it's, people just sort of look at what they...
welcomed and explored the fear, because the fear might have a great message for you.
Yeah,
you know, fear is
but
not
explore it. Don't sit in it, you know.
Right. Right.
Use the paddle.
There's a distinction.
Go through it.
You know, and there's something that you've talked about, and, you know, I've been very conscious of this, and I think this is such a huge lesson, Lisa, for parents, is about not stealing our children's joy. You know, like you've talked about, like when you went to Disney's the Animal Kingdom with your daughter in the hotel, and, you know, all of us as parents have done that because, you know, oh, we don't want to disturb anybody. But I love the fact, like even in that restaurant yesterday, that little boy had this amazing joy, and his mom had to chase him, you know, but they didn't squash it either. And I think as parents sometimes, you know, it's okay to let children have that joyful moment without, you know, grabbing a hold and saying, no, shh, be quiet, you know, you don't want to disturb anybody. You know, and I loved when you talked about that, because that's like a huge lesson for us as parents with our children, you know. So how do you find that you want them to have their joy, but then you also have to have some sort of boundaries that they're not going crazy?
Right. Our society just is all about reining kids in when they're young. So I think putting them in those situations as little as possible, those situations where, don't take them to the Russian tea room, take them somewhere where they can be themselves, where they can be joyful and express themselves, and just really always give them positive feedback when they are just full out, letting loose and being who they are.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I think we get so habituated, we're afraid of it, and it's really projection. We as adults have been trained our whole lives not to be the full expression of who we are. We were shut down as kids, not because we had horrible parents, but because that's what parents do. So it makes us nervous, sometimes even just at home in a perfectly safe environment where a kid could be fully expressive of every emotion that comes up. It's still like that makes parents nervous, and the tendency is, no, rein that in, pull back, don't express that way. And just becoming aware that you don't want to do that to your kids, and you want to teach them that everything they're feeling is beautiful and right and perfect. And if they're having a big, huge old tantrum, just have that tantrum until it's done, and then it'll be gone. That's the beauty of kids. Before we learned to suppress all that, we would just blow through it, and it would be gone, and it would be the beautiful rainbow after the storm. But as we grow, we learn more and more ways and reasons to suppress and contain our emotions. And we've seen that iceberg model they use all the time in psychology, right? It's like that little tiny tip of the iceberg. Up here is the feelings that we're aware of, the beliefs we're aware of, the emotions that we're consciously expressing, and then underneath the waterline, that whole big-ass chunk is all those subconscious things that we push down and not allowed ourselves to feel and not allowed ourselves to think or express. All that gets stored, and it's still in our energetic body, and then we wonder why we can't attract, law of attraction. We wonder why we can't manifest, but we're trying to manifest with the things that we know we're thinking up here in that tiny tip of the iceberg, and we've got all this other big manifestation energy that we've stuffed away.
See, that's why I think I love being a grandparent now, because when my granddaughter, she was having her little drama queen moment, so I just took pictures of it, and she got bored. It was just so funny, and then she had a little tantrum a couple of weeks ago, and she was going to throw herself on the floor. She's in that stage now, so I helped her down, and I slid her out of my way so I wouldn't step on her. And she looked at me just so, how could you do this and not, get into this with me? And I just stepped over her and kept going on.
Right.
I wanted to take a picture of that one because she just looked at me like, how could you have just slid me out of your way? I'm like, I helped you not crack your head open. My job here is done. So it's interesting seeing it now as a grandparent, and I'm having the knowledge that I have now, and I honestly believe as a grandparent you help your children be better parents.
Well, that's the goal. That's the goal of most parents who are sort of at least halfway plugged in. They want their children to be better than them, to do things better. It's sadly not the case across the board, though. There's a lot of people out there still need juicy joy in their lives.
Well, here's something, and I agree. For people out there that, what about all the times or things in our lives that we don't like? How can we handle those? When we have things that we just don't like, how do you handle that?
Well, just to go back for a second on the kids and the parents, the best thing, and people know this, but they don't really hear it, that any parent can do for their kids is learn to be joyful themselves, is learn to be more evolved themselves. You could tell your kids, you could enroll them in all the right programs, tell them how to be. Your kids are never going to do what you say, they're going to do what you do. Everything in your energy, even the things you think you're hiding from them, everything in your energy is being transferred right into them. So
absolutely.
Before anybody takes any steps to try to fix their kids, fix you. Get yourself to be the best expression of you that you can be, and your kids are going to be fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. You're right, because they're just, our children, especially the really younger ones, are just mirroring energy that they're feeling around them.
But kids are amplifiers. They will amplify what's going on with you, which is worse again,
And store it away. And become for the rest of their lives.
Yeah. So let's blame the kid, let's medicate the kid, and let's not deal with our own issues.
Right.
Yeah, these are the people that need you.
About, what do we do with negative circumstances? Oh, my goodness. You are the king and queen of that. You
Yes.
really are. I vow to you. That is just, what I'm talking about here.
Yes.
But in Juicy Joy Training, no matter what people come to me with, these horrible things that they just can't overcome, we embrace it. It is the only thing to do. We get inside it. We use it as a springboard for everything that we do in Juicy Joy. And it's all about the contrast, right? There's no yin without the yang, and life is about duality. And it's almost like the more you can touch that sorrow, the more you can touch that devastation, it just makes the range that much broader and richer to go touch joy and bliss on the other end. So no matter what people are going through, and certainly, you all could speak to this much better than I can, no matter what anyone's going through, there's a way to find the joyful place in it, to find a way to swing it in the other direction.
Yeah, but for me, I remember watching it some time ago. It was sort of, because I'm like a cat with a lizard.
Yes, he is.
With any feelings, doesn't matter what it is. I need to get it from the inside out. And I was watching, because one of my things growing up was boxing. Loved boxing. And I was watching boxers, and I saw this one boxer getting pummeled against the ropes. I could hear the little voice in his head going, make it stop, And he just reached out, and he grabbed the other guy, and he hugged him. And I thought, that's what we've been trained to do when I used to box years ago.
You used to box.
Shut up. You don't tell that story on national television or any television.
Okay.
Anyway, that's for another show. Don't you throw me under the bus. Do not throw me under the bus. Anyway, well, what we were taught to do is, if you're getting pummeled against the ropes, which I'll give you that, happened to me many times, you grab the other boxer and you hug them. So that'll make it stop for a while, so you can catch a breath. So you embrace it. That's what I got out of that. If something's pummeling you like that, embrace it. See where it's going to take you.
Bottom line on all martial arts training too, right? You go with the kick or the punch.
Absolutely. You sort of jump back, and that's what works for stunt fighters. They don't lean into the punch. You lean away from it. But again, that's kind of what I learned, is sort of looking back on it. Like, that's an analogy for a lot of people that that makes it stop for just the right amount of time for you to catch your breath. And in boxing, it's to catch your breath and sort of look around and see where you are.
Well, and the thing is, what you resist persists, because that was one of the real big lessons when we were in the hospital with Andrew. It's like, I couldn't believe that this was my life. I couldn't believe I was in a children's hospital. I couldn't believe I needed the Ronald McDonald House. And then there came a point where I'm like, this is my life. I cannot fight against this anymore. I have to embrace this. I have to hug it against the ropes.
Yep. Otherwise, it's going to keep pummeling you.
And then, absolutely, finding the joy, and to see my son to be able to find so much joy.
Yeah.
And then him telling me it was his choice. He chose. Nothing else decided his happiness. Not the leukemia, not the hospital, not the doctors. Only he decided. That
was the biggest thing, the biggest energy I got from him. And it's like realizing he was an avatar at that point. When you say stuff like that, you're just like, no, not even with a gun to my head would I have said something like that in his situation,
No, I would have never said anything.
Negative's better, It's like, feel sorry for me,
My food doesn't come out right, I'm not happy.
Look what the two of you have been able to build, and how many lives you've touched and people that you've helped from that situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it does. It comes from walking your talk. And, we had the greatest teacher. I don't know, with Andrew, I mean, he was a great teacher beforehand, and I was afraid of when he was diagnosed that it would change him, and all it did was magnify who he was. I was just in awe. And, I mean, I know Martin and I to this day are just humbled and privileged that we got to watch this master teacher up close and personal and be a part of that journey, as difficult as it was as us as parents. I mean, it was, it's hard. It's a hard thing to live up to. I'm thinking, geez, he set the bar high for us.
He did.
I'll have to smack him for that one. We can't fall short of that now.
But speaking of that, you managed to pull it together in a book, right?
Yes, I did.
Yes. You don't have it in front of you?
I do not. It's in your bag.
Okay.
Well, yeah, his whole journey, but just even those lessons. That's right. No regrets, a journey through life, love, and beyond. And I'm really glad I documented all that, because that's just one of many lessons in that book that Andrew not only taught us, but the people that were lucky enough to be in his presence during that time. So that's why I say this book, it's his story and how he handled life as a child and, you know, finding that joy. And I love the fact that you're out there doing the same. And, you know, Lisa, and this is what I love about you, because when, you know, we were at your Juicy Joy conference, and you are full of that joy. And
Yes.
I love the fact that you'll dance anywhere.
It's like, what the hell is she doing now?
Why not?
You know,
Yeah.
get off the table. People trying to eat on that. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I mean, it definitely was. There was a lot of joy, you know, at that. I mean, there was a lot of things that weren't happening that should have been happening, some things going wrong, a lot of stuff going right, but above it all, it was a pleasure to be at it, you know, because of the energy that was there. Yeah,
And, you know, and you
energy.
focus on, because, you know, in every situation, and you know this, Lisa, is that you can focus on what's going wrong or focus on what's going right and what feels right. And
Yeah.
then that's when, you know, even if it's the smallest thing, that, you know, you grab on to that tiniest thing, and then the other things start to come forward, you know, that are in alignment with that.
Absolutely.
Now, how can learning the Juicy Joy method improve our relationship with others?
Well, just like we were teasing about before the show started with Martin, you know it's true. You've heard it a million times that you can't love anyone else until you love yourself, but it's absolutely becomes so apparent when you start doing the work to figure out who you authentically are, that until you've really dug down there and found out who that is and start operating as that person, you realize that the love that you've been giving to other people has been conditional. It's been love from half of you, from that persona that you project. And so learning how to love others is one piece of it, and learning to receive love from other people. And until you've gotten clear on who you really are, there's no way that you could be receiving love in a meaningful way that brings you joy, that adds to your daily experience of genuine joy. So a lot of that is the authenticity piece, but people generally who are in our lives don't want us to change, not because they don't care about us, but because it's threatening for the most part when people have been used to you a certain way and they know how to relate to you that way, and you start showing up in a very different way. That can be threatening to a lot of your relationships.
Yeah.
So when we get to that part in the Juicy Joy training, we do a lot of exercises and just sort of situations on how to address this with people, how to make them feel safe in the new you that you're becoming, and how to weed out the people in your life who really do want to help support you in living a joyful life, and those who maybe really don't, and taking some steps to maybe extricate yourself in those situations. If you can't sway them around if you can't bring them with you, you might have to leave them behind.
But what if you don't really care?
Well, then you're good.
What if your only concern is getting right? You know, it's like for me, it's letting the chips fall where they may. People in my life, I enjoy their company and stuff, but it's not my concern whether they follow me, whether they don't follow me, whether they're there for me, whether they're not there for me. You know, it's about me.
A certain amount of detachment in that way that you're describing is healthy and perfect and needs to be there for you.
Yeah, well, you know where I'm going with it. It's not like I'm arrogant, but I'm not that arrogant.
No, I was in there. I was going to take you down a little, because possibly
I'm just glad he likes me.
manner of which you're expressing it makes me wonder if you are at that completely healthy place, or if that does come from a bit of that padding that we talked about, that energetic padding that it's almost like if I let myself really care about what people think, then I might get hurt. So there is possibly some padding that you could pull away, because we're tribal creatures by nature. Human beings are meant for connection, for deep, meaningful, real, genuine connection with other human beings. That's a big contributor to a joyful life, no matter who you are. Though some people, of course, are going to resonate with that more than others, and there's some who are perfectly happy as almost hermits. Still, there's going to be some need for genuine connection with others.
Yeah, well, I've actually explored it in myself, and I'm happy. You know, it's not, I mean, I have friends, they come and go. The coming and going, it doesn't really bother me. It never has, never will.
Well, I think
not since I quit drinking.
Well, I think we've gotten used to it, because Martin and I always move forward, and so we've always started to see the pattern that we leave people behind. We're like, oh, okay, it's just another phase. We're moving forward. They can't keep up. Okay, you know. And that's we've come to accept that, and you know, because everybody has their own journey, and it's, you know, and we have to accept where people are, and you know, we've made peace with that, I think.
Yeah, it's cool.
So I would like to make one distinction there, because I know y'all, and I know that you have made peace with that, but one really gigantic factor you may be overlooking is the Martin and Connie factor. You two are fabulous together. You have so much of that connection between the two of you that it does sort of stand to reason maybe you're not going to need to get it from a million other places. A lot of people, and I have to say a lot of people who are in couples, in marriages, or committed couples, do not have what you two have together, and it's possible to be even more lonely in a marriage.
Yeah, I get that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Well, the clients that I deal with, I see that a lot. You know, that you know energetically talking to the person that they would be better off by themselves. You know, they would be more energetic, they would be more joyful, but they really can't see it because they want somebody to be with on the one hand, and they just, they're not ready to sort of look at their situation. But I think teaching them to be their authentic selves and finding their juicy joy is a great way, you know, to accelerate people's processes and how they deal with themselves.
Right.
You know?
And so much of it just goes back to our early programming, the things that we've learned. I'm doing a workshop with Dr. Kim Potter. I don't know if you all remember him from the Juicy You conference.
I'm sure I would.
Dr. Kim Potter, he's a behaviorist.
Yes.
He and I have gotten together to combine our modalities. We're doing a workshop in Boca Raton on October 6th. If anybody's interested, go to my website under the events section. My website is lisamccourt.com. And he has done amazing work with me since that conference on retrieving some childhood memories and pulling up some things, because I didn't have memories from my childhood. It's just something that happens sometimes. There's a lot of repression there, nothing before 10 or 12 that I actually have. And so we've combined a lot of what we do to bring things up and figure out, you know, where does that come from, that, you know, buffer that says I don't need connection, or that intense craving for connection, or whatever it may be, just to relate it to what we were talking about. But he talks about how just bringing our now emotionally mature perspective back to whatever started the root cause, it's just like a domino effect. It shifts all the energy from that point forward, so that he gives this example of this woman who was afraid of cats, and she just hated cats, didn't know why, but couldn't stand cats. And there was a repressed memory that she had no conscious awareness of, that we were able to bring up, of being a tiny, tiny small child walking into a barn and seeing a mother cat eating her newborn baby.
Oh,
good for her.
Horrified the child.
Oh my gosh, as a child that would be, ooh.
Yeah, but now,
It's life,
bringing
baby.
back her adult perspective to that memory, she realized that the mother cat was just licking her baby.
Oh.
But to the small child who didn't understand cat behavior, who didn't have any frame of reference, it looked like she was eating them. And just going back and bringing the now enlightened, wiser perspective to that situation shifted the whole energy of it, and has no fear of cats, no hatred for cats anymore, completely dissipated the situation. So that's like a really cut and dry example. Most of the examples are more emotional and more, you know, tied to bigger things in our lives than cats. Yeah. That's just to give you an example of how it can work. It's really fascinating work. So we're going to just...
Yeah, but you're in my department now when you're talking about that, because I'm also a behavioralist.
Yeah.
How did he do that with you? What modality did he use? Just as a...
It's his own. It's his own modality. This guy has been all over the world. He actually earned a PhD from his research. He had a research facility in Thailand where he had a bunch of people that he worked with, and proved that the human thought patterns can actually change animal behavior. It was with like people and chickens, and he has a whole modality that he's pioneered himself.
Wow, that's going to be...
Are there modalities that you use?
For that, I generally don't touch that at this point, because I got too much other stuff that I do.
Right.
But you can do a lot of work connected to dream therapy and stuff with that, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, that's going to be an incredible... Now, is that just a one-day workshop, or is that...
So, one-day, all-day workshop at the Boca Bridge Hotel on October 6th. Yeah, we've been putting it together for months and months to make sure we get like all the most impactful pieces in there.
Are you taping it?
We might tape it, yeah.
I think that would be that would be a real good one to tape, yeah.
It would be,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Was that a psychic read on that, Martin?
Yes, it was.
Oh,
Needs-
thank you, Martin.
It needs
Yes,
to be
value
taped,
it.
yes.
Because then
I value
that's something that could be then later for download for people that
Product,
can't, always make it, because that sounds like a really powerful, fantastic workshop.
It's going to be an amazing day.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, I have a question here now. What are juicy feels?
Juicy feels, those are the energetic processes that I use to shift the energy for people. And they're usually preceded by naked writing exercises. Naked writing is like automatic
There
writing.
goes our G rating.
Whatever.
Actually, being physically naked while you do it is optional, not required. It's about being emotionally naked, getting as raw and real and uncensored with yourself as you can. So there are little tricks that we do to get ourselves into that place before doing a naked writing. And then I give them prompts, and they do some naked writing to pull up some of the pieces that they're going to need to apply in the juicy feel. And then the juicy feel is a guided visualization. So we call it the feel because some people just aren't visually oriented. So if you can't picture everything just right, you can still immerse yourself in the feelings of the process. And it's something that you do repeatedly for whatever we're working on with that client. And a bunch of them are in the book, and there are actually 4 of them are available for free download at my website as a free breakthrough to bliss on training yourself to receive, because for most of us, that's the first step to have any joy in our life or anything good in our life. We have to open up that receptivity channel. So there are 4 audio files that you can get for free at lisamccourt.com that take you through one of the juicy feels for that. But it's really an energetic shift, and there are downloads that are available as well that have Eldon Taylor's technology behind them. Eldon Taylor pioneered the whole subliminal technology. He's got it in prison systems all over the world, and it's called Inner Talk. It's his patented process for subliminal messaging. So the audio files for the juicy feels are all embedded with self-love, subliminal messaging that Eldon himself put on there for me. So they're really powerful.
Cool.
I think it's a large reason I get the results that I do with the joy clients is being able to direct them to the specific juicy feels that will address the issues that they're dealing with.
Awesome.
Okay, well, we only have a few minutes left, so I want to get and Martin, I'm going to have you just do a really quick breathing in some juicy joy in just a second here, but I want to make sure that we get, for all the information about Lisa McCourt and her work, Lisa McCourt, McCourt.com. You get her events there, her book. She's got an online community associated with her Juicy Joy community with the book. So you're definitely going to want to look her up. I'm going to start doing readings again. You'll be able to get Martin and I together now for readings for a short time for the same price. And I'll be doing email readings, so go to pureheartspace.com for the information on that. Sign up for our newsletter because there'll be specials coming up later on this year and only for our newsletter people. So Martin, take us just through a really quick breathe, just a deep breathing, and let's breathe in some juicy joy to end the show, and so everybody just gets that juicy high.
Okay, if everybody out there is listening, I just want you to relax and just let your shoulders go loose. Just close your eyes. I want you to take a deep breath, breathing in through your nose, and as you breathe in, I want you to hold it for a few moments. And as you breathe out, I want you to feel all the air, taking all of the toxins out of your body. Now as you breathe in the next breath of clean air, hold it for a few moments. And as you're holding it, think about something that you really want in your life. And as you breathe out, I want you to get that feeling all over your body, something that you really want. Now as you take this third deep breath, as you're breathing in, you're bringing that thing, that energy that you want into your body, all the way down to your tailbone. And breathe it out. And now you can feel that energy, that manifestation energy of that thing that you want now throughout your body, every cell, every fiber, and every muscle.
So
Open your eyes.
now next
Awesome.
week, we're going to have Roger. I love the breathing. Love to end the show with the breathing. Well, next week is going to be Roger Hansen. It's a pre-taped show. So Roger Hansen, who did the psychic art of Andrew before we ever met, he will be our guest next week. You are going to want to tune in for next week's show. So until then, remember, you got to live your life with no regrets.
And die laughing.
Thank you, Lisa. We'll see you this weekend.
Love you too.
Love you too.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Shift Happens TV. Join us each Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time as we take you on a metaphysical journey. Be enlightened and entertained as we take you through life, love, and beyond in an inspiring and humorous way. Live your life with no regrets and die laughing.
Be sure to hop on over to the Spiritual Broadcast Network. It's the go-to place for all things spiritual. You'll discover internet television shows that you won't find anywhere else. You can also choose from hundreds of hours of spiritual documentaries and movies. You'll enjoy on-demand and live internet television programming 24/7. Best of all, we add new dramas, comedies, talk, and reality shows and more on a daily basis. So why spend countless hours searching the web when you can quickly find just what you want on the Spiritual Broadcast Network?